So good morning to everybody. I'm happy to be here in this discussion. Already lots of learnings and ideas. So maybe just to frame that I represent here the research and innovation, but the healthcare field, right? So I work in a unit where our main objective is the uptake of innovation in healthcare. So we are funding research and innovation projects, but we are also doing a lot of actions in order to incentivize the uptake of these innovations. And obviously, innovation procurement is one of our instruments. So first of all, before starting talking about our experience with innovation procurement in healthcare, I would like to explain why we are doing it. And I think, as Vasilis was mentioning, it's since a while that we are explaining these kind of things, but I think the non-believers are getting smaller and smaller. And proof is the inclusion of innovation procurement in important political documents that will frame are supposed to frame the work of the Commission in the future, like the LETA report that you might have heard about, where innovation procurement is mentioned, and many other documents like that. I would like also to praise the presidency event that the Belgian organized, and I thought it was very nice, this comparison that was done at the point with the difference that can make for a small actor to receive 1 million as a grant or 1 million in the context of pre-commercial procurement or public procurement of innovation. I thought it was a brilliant example to identify the power of the instrument. But anyway, so from a research and innovation perspective, obviously, usually we fund the supply side. We incentivize researchers, companies in order to be innovative. And with this instrument, with the use of innovation procurement, we are trying to do the opposite. We are trying to incentivize the procurers to tell what their needs are in case they need innovation. And that's very important. It's a change of game because by doing this, we can open new business opportunities because suppliers, if they do not know that, for example, important procurers do need innovation in an area, if they don't know that, they might not invest in that, right? So by doing this, we are helping developing new business opportunities, and obviously, as you see there, very good incentives also for the public sector because it helps them to modernize and improve the quality and efficiency of public services at a reasonable price because that allows to share also the cost of investing in products that are not yet in the market. But it's very important also from a perspective of the European policy, because what is clear is that next Commission, well, clear, of course, I don't have a magic, but I think I'm not lying if I tell you that there is a high likelihood that we will talk a lot about competitiveness, dependence, sovereignty. So we are a scientific powerhouse in Europe, right? I think this is acknowledged by everybody. And at the same time, we have a big capacity of the public purse to help bringing this innovation into commercialized solutions. This is a problem that has been acknowledged that needs to be tackled. So the use of instruments like innovation procurement can certainly help. So I wanted to ask, before talking a lot about this instrument, who has been involved in pre-commercial procurement projects funded by the European Commission as procurer here? Anybody? Okay. And not as procurer, as any member of the consortium? Okay, all right, so I see that there is already some knowledge and that some of you have been courageous enough to launch yourself in this supposed to be very complicated. And maybe it's complicated, but I think the experience this decreases the complexity, and I will try to convince you of the value added of doing that. So we have two main instruments, pre-commercial procurement and public procurement for innovation. They are complementary and they are mandatory use of, value-based procurement principles are mandatory. So the public procurement of innovation has been less used by us in the context of health. Even though we have some successful experiences, but we have used it less. It is when a product is almost in the market, just needs to have some demand in order to have the public sector acting as the first buyer. And then the pre-commercial procurement, which is when there is still research and development needed, and it can be at very different TRL levels. So here we are funding from low to high TRLs, but we do it in a competitive phase. So it's very important that when there is the identification of a need by the public procurer, it's important to still have the possibility to have competing solutions before allowing the procurer to decide in which solutions he wants to invest massively or at large scale. Very important to mention what it is in the left part about the open market consultation. That's a very important part of the pre-commercial procurement that we prefer that it's done before launching the, well, actually it's not that we prefer, it is compulsory to do it because otherwise it doesn't make sense to launch the tendering without knowing what the market situation is. So, as I said, most of our experience is around pre-commercial procurement, and in this slide you summarize the reasons why it's an important instrument to foster innovation. I forgot to mention that in healthcare, obviously, it is a very powerful tool to embed innovation. First of all, it's a very conservative sector, and second, in Europe, it represents more than 70% of average of public spending. So if we want to bring innovation to healthcare, it's very important that we go through the use of public procurement. So by using the instrument of pre-commercial procurement, you de-risk innovation, you steer development to your own needs, and I mean, there are many different advantages by which you help really modernize the public sector. So we have used it already since a while. Actually, it's since FP7 already. And we are using it regularly. There are regularly topics that come out around healthcare. In total, around more than 120 million euros of contribution, which is nothing compared to the whole budget for health in Horizon Europe, but which is not minimal when you look at the overall amount that has been spent in innovation procurement. We hope, as Livet was saying, that these amounts will increase in the future, but it's already a good basis to extract some conclusions. We have 9 ongoing projects currently that you see in this slide. Actually, ICAR, which is the first one, is almost final, so I think it's going to be close in the next weeks. I would summarize by saying that out of the 9, we have 7 in the field of integrated care, different dimensions, but integrated care, and 2 in the field of personalized medicine and next generation sequencing. And I want to make this distinction so that you see that this instrument does not necessarily need to be used for the development of digital tools. It can really be adapted to many different research and development needs. Those projects are advancing quite well, and I must say that we have also learned on the experience how to facilitate their use and their impact. We have a lot of finalized projects, first finalized in 2016, and every year we have new finalizing. And that's, I mean, if you are interested in knowing what we have funded in the field of healthcare, I'm sure you will get the slides afterwards, and you can see that we have fund from projects dealing with mental health to projects dealing with pain management, elderly care. Many different pieces of healthcare provision have been tackled. And we have beautiful examples. You probably have heard already about Alea. It's one of the first launch, but actually I wanted to mention it because it represents how these instruments are complementary: pre-commercial procurement and public procurement for innovation. A group of 4 hospitals launched, leading hospitals in Europe, launched a pre-commercial procurement because they needed to be able to follow better the patients at risk in intensive care units. And in a very short period of time, 1 year and a half, they managed to have already a solution that they deployed in lower scale, and that afterwards translated into a bigger group of procurers that purchased the solution, well, did anything that was necessary in order to ensure the large scale commercialization, certification, regulation, all these kind of things was done afterwards with the public procurement for innovation that led to the really large commercialization of the tool. And important to mention as well that the three procurers that participated in the three suppliers that were successful in the last phase of the pre-commercial procurement have all successfully commercialized their solutions. What I wanted to say that because it's a really important tool in order also to support small actors and innovators. We have other examples, but for the purpose of time, I will move. So impact, in this slide you have seen the impact that we have identified. Actually, it's Lieve and her team who have done an amazing work in order to follow very closely the impact of all the projects in health, but also in other sectors. And I would like to mention three in particular that seem very important to me. Is the opening road to market for new players. Innovation happens often at the level of small players. This instrument supports and helps them to get to the market. And the comparison between normal procurement and public procurement of innovation is huge. We go from 30% to 70%. So it's really very, very encouraging. And also one very important aspect is the stimulation of the cross-border company growth. So this is also important for the supply side, how this instrument allows them to access to a much bigger market. And the commercialization success rate significantly increased. And last, I was saying that we will talk a lot about sovereignty. And this is a particular aspect that I would like to reinforce in the use of pre-commercial procurement, is that because it does not have to comply with the European procurement rules or national procurement, well, national, yes, but not European, there is the possibility to impose some criteria regarding that the activities need to be done in Europe. So close to 100% of the research and development activities are done in Europe. And this is a very important point as well. So we have got some general conclusions, recommendations, as some of you have already mentioned, and nothing new, but important to remind that the main advantage of this instrument is how it facilitates the dialogue and the interaction between supply and demand. This is the most important part. For the supply, that the understanding what the customer need is really an important competitive advantage, but also for the demand side to be understood. So what this means that when you prepare a pre-commercial procurement, you need to ensure that the clinical teams, if you are working in health, but I guess it's applicable to other domains, are available to interact all over the process with the suppliers. Which means that at the origin of these projects, I tend to believe that it's better to have already the commitment of the procurement departments, but also the commitment of the clinical sites. It cannot only be started as a sort of innovation project from the innovation departments. We have seen that in the past. It's nice, but it's not going to have the impact that we search for. So it's very important to ensure you want to go ahead with a project, great, but ensure that you have the actors that you need to ensure it is impactful. And the availability of the clinical staff is the more important in the field of health. Capacity building, culture of innovation has already been mentioned. Another important part, thorough preparation. Open market consultation, preparatory tenders, identification of the common needs. It's not like, hey, let's get 5 million from the European Commission to do a project, let's see afterwards what we will do. No, you need to agree between buyers what are the needs that you are trying to satisfy. We have already closed projects because of that reason in the past. I mean, close, without letting them finish. Important also that the instrument pre-commercial procurement only covers part of the process. There are things that you need to do afterwards. Important to know it because otherwise it can create frustration. So, in healthcare it's a field extremely regulated, certification, regulation. These things take time, clinical studies, clinical trials. So you need to ensure that you have captured the whole range of activities that you need to do. Oops. It's not moving. I know the conclusions are important, but I have more interesting news for you. No. Okay. We have a lot of supporting actions. So some of the things that were requested by the prior panel, at least in the field of healthcare, we have really acted on that. We have coordination and support action, Procure for Health, that is working precisely on the widening on the use. And some representatives are here. So if you have questions, you could always ask them. Jorge was there, but then EAFIP, this is not specific on healthcare, but is doing a lot to support the capacity building. As regards Procure for Health, for procurers, you can join the community, and they are doing very important fields like open market consultations already. They have identified 4 common needs that emerge between the large community of procurers that they have, and they are actively preparing the open market consultations to identify whether it makes sense to go for a innovation procurement afterwards together or not. So there are still two to be organized in June and in September in the context of their work, and they are also doing a lot of twinning activities for this widening aspect. European Innovation Council, I will not say anything because Vasilis is there and Bertrand is there. They are also doing a lot to support both demand and supply side to incentivize the use of the instrument. Particularly nice, this new kid on the block that you probably cannot read, but they are going to fund the possibility to pilot under risk innovation for suppliers, putting them in contact with the demand side. And this is the most important part because we have a new funding opportunity. I don't have a lot of time to talk about that. Most likely I have already spent a lot of time. But the most important is the little line that is in the bottom, because we did an info day very recently, which is recorded, and there Live and the project officer policy officer who developed this topic did an amazing job in explaining all the details that you would need to know in case you want to submit an application about the knowledge of the instrument, but also about the policy context. 15 million euros, and what we want to tackle is the greening of the healthcare sector. Why? Because healthcare sector is one of the biggest polluter in the world. 5% average of the greenhouse emissions are coming from healthcare, and in industrialized countries, it's even 8%. This sector has been a little bit protected for very good reasons, but now it's time that this is tackled, because by becoming greener, you can also become more sustainable and more efficient. So these are not kind of contradictory. So we want to help procurers to, in case they need innovation in order to become greener, we want to help them. As you see, it's a very broad topic, because it's not only considering the direct impact, but also the direct and indirect, and tackling also the supply chain, which is 3/4 or 2/3 of the greenhouse emissions. As I told you, we are well, maybe first to tell you that indeed, obviously, this it's very important to know that we are not going to fund greening activities that could apply to any kind of sector, because that could be funded with other funds. Here, we want to fund projects that are really specific to the healthcare sector, even if, of course, the adaptation of solutions that have been done in other sectors to be somehow applied to healthcare, that could be within a scope if there is research and development needed. But again, if you have specific questions, the info day is really available to everybody. But very important to say that we have learned, and what we want is to foster the adoption. We are doing this not to fund more research and development in healthcare. We have many instruments to do so. We want really to foster the uptake of innovation, and that's why we want some commitment from the procurement side, from the procurers, that if the solution that will be developed is successful, if one of the solutions is successful, there is a commitment for the adoption. And that's why we are asking for some specific documents in order to really give proof of this commitment. This is new. It was not requested before. And we are also giving the possibility to have the deployment, to think about the deployment either in a fast track, so already to deploy, to acquire during the lifetime of the pre-commercial procurement, or to do it through a normal pre-commercial procurement with the 3 phases. And well, that allows you as well to buy some limited quantities of what has been developed. But if you want to go for a large scale procurement, you could need to follow with a public procurement of innovation, a negotiated procedure. It would have to be done out of the remit of the pre-commercial procurement. Nevertheless, if you would like to do it already in the context of the PCP, you have this fast track possibility that I'm sure many people have questions, but again, in the info day, all the answers are there. And that's all from my side. Thanks a lot for your attention, and let's hope that you will all use more innovation procurement in the future.